us.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Justine. Feel free to turn your camera on if you want to. It's going to be kind of a small, intimate group. We are recording. We're going to be sending out the replay. So if you don't want your video on, that's fine as well. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. If you could stay muted, that would be helpful. We're going to make it mostly interactive in the chat, just for the sake of time, since we're going to really make sure it doesn't go any longer than 45 minutes. And then we are going to have a special little treat for you all at the end. So if you're able to stay till the end, please do so. If you can't, leave whenever you need to. We will send out the replay later, so you'll be able to watch that if you need to leave early. Oh, nice. I like seeing all your faces. Makes me feel more connected. Okay, should we get started?
Yes.
All right, so welcome to this little webinar with myself. I'm Kelly Smythe-Denham, the founder of Scaling Up, and we're here with Robin Morning. She is a team member here at Scaling Up, and we're going to talk to you about scaling up your impact, how to make the biggest difference with your passion. So Robin and I are both entrepreneurs. And we both have big visions that, you know, are aligned in some ways and are kind of like a little bit different in other ways. And so we want to talk with you about what scaling up your impact means to us with our passions, what that looks like with networking, with teams that we create, how we do it with other people and not alone, and what scaling up even means to us, and ideally to you all as well, because I think it's a concept that can feel really big and unattainable sometimes. And so we want to talk about it in a way that's kind of digestible, because ultimately, I think if everybody who has a passion, which is most mental health therapists, that's why we get into the field in the first place, if we can all figure out ways to work together to support each other and to make our impact bigger, if that's what we desire, then we're going to, you know, make a bigger impact in the world and help more people, which is ultimately what most of us probably want to do, is my assumption based on our field of choice. So I'm going to start by just opening it up with Robin, talking a little bit about, you know, what scaling up your impact means to her, and then I'll chat. We'll give some tips and tricks. We're going to ask you all some questions in the chat so that we can interact with you as well. So feel free to participate that way if you'd like to. So Robin, why don't you kick us off with what scaling up your impact means to you?
All right. Thank you, Kelly. This is Robin. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Just want to let you know, in case there are folks that are unable to see me on the screen for any reason, I am a Black biracial femme person. I have dark glasses on. I have my dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and I'm wearing a navy blue sweatshirt with the word queer in script on it. And behind me, you can see kind of stereotypical family room furniture, because, you know, year 2 of the pandemic. So working from the family room still. I am really glad to be here with you all again. I know not all of you were on our last webinar, but about affinity groups, but I'm really glad that we're with our community again. It feels so fun to be together on Zoom. As Kelly said, we wanted to talk about what scaling up our impact means, because we talk a lot about it in our emails, on our social media. It's what the main theme of our Be Bold Summit that's coming up in June. And we were thinking, do people know what we mean by that? And we actually had one of our presenters who was presenting at the summit say, well, I'm not really doing big things, so I don't think I fit the theme of scaling up impact. And so as soon as that presenter said that, I was like, we need to talk about this, because we want to make sure that we're conveying our message to you, and we want to hear also from you what your experiences are and what the phrase or the work of scaling up your impact means to you. So I will say that for me, scaling up means a lot of things, and most of my work in the mental health field at this point is not directly clinical. I'm no longer doing clinical services with clients, with like therapy and stuff like that. but I do a lot of anti-oppression and liberatory work in the field so that to further, my goals and my role in movement spaces related to racial justice, disability justice, abolition of oppressive systems, including the prison industrial complex and the mental health industrial complex. And so there's a lot of work that I do that makes a big difference in the community, but I may not see it, right, for a long time. So for me, scaling up my impact is more about scaling out. It's not so much scaling up in terms of more money, more social capital, more like big, better, those types of things that I think I organically associate with the phrase scale up your impact, because when I hear that, I think about what that means in capitalistic terms. And those things don't really resonate with me because those are systems and relational dynamics that I'm working to change within myself and my relationships with my loved ones, my community members, and my professional network as well. So for me, it's about making my work and my relationships with people more accessible, more accountable, more like centering consent and agency, and less about pathologizing and all kinds of things that just keep us in a not really good place. So in order to do that, I really work more with community, and give what it means to access, or what it means to move towards mental well-being and emotional health, back to the individual that is seeking it, rather than it being about me knowing what to do so that their life is better. There may be things I bring to the table. There's things that the client would bring to the table, but ultimately, their healing or their mental health journey is theirs, and they have the full capacity as a human being to know what is right for them. And so for me, scaling up is more about scaling out. So when I think of scaling up financially, I think about how much how much capital, how much money can we bring in for the communities, and how do we distribute that money in a way that benefits everyone in the community that I'm working with that need how they need it. What does equitable access to that money mean? So if I'm working on a program or designing something or doing something, and the goal is, well, we need to bring in a lot of money for it, how do we use that money in a way that fosters and supports liberatory efforts and doesn't recreate oppressive ones and inequitable systems? And so I like the concept of building generational wealth, as long as it is supporting communities, and not supporting kind of the status quo, what we have now. So I also think about accessibility from all angles. So financial accessibility, cultural accessibility, lived experience accessibility, breaking down barriers where there doesn't need to be any barriers at all, and kind of redefining what it means to engage ethically with one another, what ethics really mean within our field as well, and then how can we really give things back to clients, and decolonize our work. So there's a lot that I do that I feel is scaling up, and it's not really about me, and more about all the people and communities that I'm working with and learning from, so that mental health can be something that is fostering health and well-being, and not something that is creating more distress and harm. Even though those two things aren't on a binary, I would like to move away from more of the harmful aspects of what we encounter in our field as mental health providers, and as people accessing the care that mental health care providers are giving. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Thanks, Robin.
Yeah.
And we're going to get more into kind of the nitty gritty things that we're doing, as well of like more practical examples after we share some of these stories. And if you have anything to add in the chat, we'd love to hear from you either privately or collectively about what your passions are, what you want scaled up, because there are so many different areas of need, as we know. And, there's always, I would say, a gap in services in our areas of passion. And even if we don't feel like that's true, and I think that's an important thing for us kind of to all realize and talk about as we are trying to expand the services that we provide, the trainings that we provide, whatever it is that we're interested in doing, our own knowledge so that we can be better clinicians for the types of populations that we work with. All right, we're getting a little bit more in the chat here. Cool. So just to give you a little bit of background about, for those of you who know what Scaling Up is or does as a company, I'll share a little bit about how this got started. I started Scaling Up about, I guess the concept of scaling up started about 5 years ago. And it started out just as a concept. And so when I was getting EMDR trained, I kind of fell in love with EMDR, mainly because what I was noticing was there was this, what I imagined as like a ripple effect. So if I was doing EMDR with an individual and they were, changing their sense of self, their beliefs about themselves, their behaviors, the way that they were parenting, showing up in relationships with people, showing up in work, then I was seeing this kind of ripple effect, even though it wasn't a direct linear understanding of what that change was. I didn't know exactly how it was positively impacting other people, but I had this strong sense of, well, if this person's healing, in my case through EMDR, but in all of y'all's cases in lots of different ways, whatever type of healing you're doing, that's having a ripple effect on every person in that person's life. And it's having a generational change in a positive way. So I think even that individual kind of one-on-one work that you're doing with people is still scaling up your impact in a lot of ways. And I felt that and still feel that as a clinician. And then I kind of moved into the work of group EMDR, which is something that we train on at Scaling Up, and felt really passionate about it and started doing some humanitarian work where I used to work in refugee resettlement before I became a therapist, and still work with refugee populations pre-COVID, used to travel into refugee camps and do trainings and things like that. And we would provide group EMDR to people, and we would also train people there to provide it so that when we left, there was a ripple effect there as well of people who had that training. And so that was kind of the next level of scaling up that I felt really passionate about and still do that type of work. And then as Scaling Up evolved over time, it basically, the initial vision came from an article that I read by a former UN worker and economist called Rolf Carrier. He actually has a TED Talk that I will put in the chat when I'm finished talking about him, that you can watch. And he talks about group EMDR from the perspective of, if we scale up interventions that work and interventions that are scalable, like in this case, group EMDR, then we can change the world, because it has EMDR and other interventions too have this ability to heal kind of the root issues. And his argument is that all the other issues that exist in society exist from kind of this systemic place of trauma, where people are kind of functioning from this place of unresolved trauma and then traumatizing other people as a result, and not being able to access places of generosity or altruism or care because they're kind of stuck in their own trauma. And so if we're able to create that healing, it'll have this big ripple effect on other areas of poverty and issues of interpersonal violence and things like that, and kind of change that. So that was my initial kind of passion, and named the business after that, because that's kind of where this vision came from. And then over time, it's also kind of gradually, as it's become more of a training company, and we offer a variety of different trainings, EMDR trainings, other trauma interventions. We have the Hive community, we have the Be Bold Summit, if you go to our website, you'll see all that we offer. It's become kind of a community to empower clinicians, whether that's through EMDR or other trauma interventions, whether that's through networking, because what I'm noticing now is that the only reason I've been able to build this is because I have a team of people with me. It initially started with Dr. Herrero, who created the EMDR IGTP, the group EMDR protocol that we teach. So it initially started out with the two of us, and then we brought in Meredith on our team, then we brought in Robin on our team, and now we've expanded with other trainers, and now we're doing the summit and the hive, which brings in other clinicians, and it just kind of keeps expanding. And it's somewhat organic, and it's mainly been because I've anchored in a passion, and then I've built a team of people around me that we feed off of each other's energy, we network together, and it just kind of keeps expanding and growing, kind of taking on a life of its own at this point. And then you sort of feed off of the energy and the momentum over time. And so it's been this kind of 5-year journey and growing from there, because we have this amazing team of people, and I never could have done this, nor would I wanted to, on my own. And so I just want to encourage you all to kind of think through, what is your passion and what kind of next steps do you need to take if you want to scale up and kind of broaden that and build that network around you, that team of people that you can work with, because I don't think doing it alone is the best option. For most people, I think that we are community-oriented people. And when you find people that are aligned in your vision, and you work together and it's a good relationship, then it's going to kind of run itself in a sense, and it's going to grow in ways that you didn't imagine. So that's kind of where we started. I want to read a little bit in the chat, and then talk about kind of some concrete, practical ways in which you can take your passion and start kind of taking whatever that next step is to scale up what your passion is. So if you haven't already, feel free to share either privately or in the chat kind of what your main passion is. I think it's helpful to pick just one. A lot of times we have a lot of different areas that we're interested in, and we get overwhelmed and somewhat paralyzed by the fact that we don't know where to go with it. So if you're able to kind of narrow down one particular passion and put it in the chat for us, I'd love to read a couple and go from there. So let's see. We have opening a therapeutic daycare in which children and families can receive services. I love that. I know that childcare is a huge barrier to getting help. Expanding your own knowledge and capacity as a trauma therapist. I love that. The change always starts within ourselves. Access to really high quality trauma treatment for people who may not usually have access to highly trained providers. I love that. That's actually a passion that we have here at Scaling Up. So if you're not familiar, we do have an accessibility plan here at Scaling Up because we want our trainings to be accessible to people. So if you can't pay the full fee, you can apply for a discount, and we do give a certain amount of discounts per month for all of our trainings. So if that's an issue for you, feel free to reach out. We also take donations from people to help offset the cost and it allows us to offer more scholarships to people. There's so much that EMDR therapy can do with healthcare systems, healthcare workers going through their ongoing trauma. Yeah, especially right now. I feel like I have an obligation to bring the power of EMDR to those who need it in a big possible way. I feel ya. Trauma therapy. We got a lot of trauma therapists in here. Capacity of therapists in trauma work. Yep, I think that the secondary trauma is a huge issue in our field. I've definitely felt that for sure. Scale up peer connections with therapist facilitation. I love that. Making EMDR therapy and other trauma therapies more accessible to healthcare workers. Yep. Navigating quality control and trauma care without gatekeeping. Yep. Or professionalizing or getting hierarchical. Yeah. Absolutely. I love these. These are big passions and all needed, right? Francine Shapiro basically said that in a really great interview that you can see online on YouTube if you're interested. Cool, yeah. Please share it with us. The ripple effect of the world's problems. Commit to real, oh God, where did it go? There we go. commit to relationships genuinely that encourage one's own potential, whether with clients, myself as a clinician, other relationships, active military and veterans. I love this. Healthcare professionals. Yeah, I think healthcare professionals are right on the front of our minds right now with the pandemic, and they're being married to a healthcare professional. I for sure know that they need that. Awesome. So, so one of the first things that I wanted to talk about is choosing one main area to focus on and give it everything that you have so that you don't stretch yourself too thin. So do some of you find that you get a little bit overwhelmed and kind of stretched thin as you're, yeah, I see some head nods. Any ideas on what it looks like to really anchor yourself? Maybe Robin, if you have any thoughts, you can also share kind of, because you shared a lot of broad information of what you focus on in your work. What would you say is kind of when you feel, and I'll share mine too, when you kind of feel like you're pulled in a lot of different directions or meet people that are kind of aligned, but aligned in a different way and kind of pull you over here, how you re-anchor in your passion? What does that look like for you?
That's a good question, one that I've really been thinking a lot about lately because doing anti-oppression work is in and of itself a lot, and it's a lot. There's a lot of different angles, and so between all the things that I could do and all the things I love to do, and things that feel really aligned with kind of just my natural way of moving through the world, I discovered that I'm really good at, and I love, and I feel invigorated when I'm working more from an innovative place. And so I don't, a lot of people hear the word anti-oppression or they hear the words abolition. It's like, what does all this mean? And most people will think of kind of this from the negative standpoint, right? So the negative meaning, we're going to tear down systems and institutions that are really harmful and oppressive. I think that is important work. Absolutely. And that's not where I shine. I shine in, well, if those systems are going to no longer exist one day in the way that they exist now, what are we going to have instead? And so I'm much more interested in building the what we're going to have instead so that we can feel more secure and ready to let go of the systems and ways of working that are not actually life affirming for much of our communities, people in our communities. And so that is naturally my thing. I'm very creative. I like to create and make and revision how we can be in relationship to each other. And so for me, that's where I choose to work. And so in a sense, I take myself away from those systems. I'm not working in that framework. And so what do I build instead with the folks that I work with in community or as clients in my consulting work? And so we might just have to move our imagination away from what we have now, from what is reality now, and imagine something completely different. And so once I kind of do that, I'm able to get in a place where I can work in many different subject areas, but we're still doing the same thing. We're still creating something new and different. And a lot of the themes are going to be similar. So it's not like I'm having to reinvent anything, every day. So I think about being able to recognize what part of what my role is right now. And that could change in a couple of years. That could change next week. I don't know. Right. But where am I right now in this big movement, in this legacy of people that have been working towards healing justice and all kinds of other areas of justice and liberation for decades and generations? Where's my role right now? What is, kind of my, I don't know, like my areas where I feel I really shine, my gifts and talents that I can bring, and things that also support my own liberation and justice for me. And so that means doing the things that I'm really good at and I really love to do, not forcing myself to do the things that I hate or that bring me down or cause me mental distress. So yeah, that's kind of what it has been for me, even though I do a million things. It's all now from this one perspective of helping to create alternatives that are liberatory and life-giving. And they're all really complex and fascinating. And so I geek out on that stuff. So yeah.
That's awesome. And that's a huge role that you play in scaling up, which, which I love. I mean, the impact that you have on our business by bringing all of your talent and your knowledge of anti-oppression work into what we do is completely invaluable to us, and something that was a gap that we had. And so I love that you share all of that with us. I'm very grateful for you.
It's fun.
Yeah, and for me, my anchor in was kind of always going back to the initial reason why I even created Scaling Up, which was doing the group intervention training with Dr. Herrero and really scaling that up and doing humanitarian work together. So a lot of what we do together, we get invitations to help do consultation after disasters, man-made and natural disasters. Pre-COVID, we used to travel in person just through invitation only to provide group interventions to humanitarian workers, NGO workers, healthcare workers, refugees, nonprofit organizations that are already working with different groups. And so that is kind of the main reason why we started this. And then as it's grown, we've grown to be, more focused and aligned with anti-oppression work and values, and kind of anchoring in that with each of the decisions that we make. And then also expanding our network so that we're not just kind of this insular experience and organization, but also expanding to see what are other people doing? How can we work together to enhance what we're doing? So even though we partner with people that aren't necessarily EMDR therapists or interested in the humanitarian work that we do or the group intervention, we end up aligning with people in similar values, and then networking and working together and scaling up the work that we each are doing by merging our networks together, and then enhancing, highlighting the work. And so we do that with a variety of different partners, which ends up scaling up the things that I care about, and it also scales up other people's work. And so that kind of networking has become a big passion and really important for the work that we do, is that collaboration. I think it's really key, because without that collaboration, we wouldn't be able to do any of the work that we're doing. So that's where I anchor myself. So then the second thing that I wanted to talk to you all about is, and I'm putting this in the chat too, is adjusting your expectations. So I know that something that I felt in the beginning was I need to have my vision all together. I need to have my mission statement and my vision, and everything needs to kind of be like tied up in this little bow. I need to know exactly where I'm going and how I'm going to get there. A lot of business coaches talk about vision boards and having your business plan together. And these are not things that therapists typically learn in school. I know that I didn't. I had to kind of join a business coaching program and learn. I mean, most of the business stuff I learned on the fly, by surrounding myself with business coaches or accountants or bookkeepers or people that kind of teach me these things. And so I think really adjusting your expectations to know that you don't need to know it all right out of the gate. Some of it is kind of trial and error. I have definitely started programs that have flopped, lost money, not made money, people aren't interested, and then some that have just exploded in ways that I wasn't expecting. And so part of the process, I think, is just adjusting your expectations that it's not going to be this linear process of scaling up your passion and figuring out what that's going to look like, but kind of being okay with learning on the fly. Maybe you meet somebody that's a good fit, teaches you something, you collaborate in some way, then you meet somebody else, or you get the right business coach that, you have this aha moment of, oh, I could try this. And then you do that and it works, or it doesn't work and you learn from that experience. So I think just figuring out kind of who you want in your circle, who you want to feel inspired by, what you can learn from them, and also learn details about their journey, because they didn't build what they built overnight. So like I said, we are where we are today over a 5-year period. And if you had asked me 5 years ago if we'd be creating the Hive and be, offer CEs and do virtual basic trainings and have this annual summit, I would have been like, what? One, how am I going to do that? And who are these people I'm working with? I had no vision for that at all. I just had kind of my initial anchoring point, and then I just networked and built it from there. So really keeping your expectations in check. I don't know, Robin, if you have any stories of keeping your expectations in check, things you've been surprised about along the way.
Oh, yeah. For me, that's being flexible and adaptive. So, which are really hard for me because I don't like to have to adjust. I want all the things to work the minute I want them to work. And I want them to go my way, and I want them to be amazing. And I want everyone else to think they're amazing. And it's just not how it is in reality. So I think one of the biggest expectations, or one of the places of adaptation for me is around slowing down, because I might get like an inkling or an idea or a vision or wake up at 3 in the morning, like I could do this. And that doesn't mean I need to do it now. I can hold on to something for, a decade, and maybe it'll come to fruition one day, maybe not. Not every idea has to happen now, or ever, but also slowing down, because when we move from a place of urgency, we're not able to be intentional and mindful and fully aware of the impact of moving forward in whatever it is that we're trying to do. So if I'm coming from a place of urgency, like hurry, hurry, got to do this, or this is super important, it has to happen now, I'm going to lose a whole lot of data that I need to have. I'm going to probably end up, causing more harm. I'm probably going to, really not get through the process or navigate the process in a more authentic way. And so that's been one of the main expectations I've had to adjust with myself over the years. And that sense of urgency is a big part of our societal white supremacist cultural characteristic kind of set. And so we're just used to everything being this urgent thing. And when we slow down, that's when we're able to really connect with ourselves and one another. And I don't think it means stop all the time, right? It doesn't mean go at a snail's pace necessarily, but slowing down even internally, checking in, getting clear with ourselves, like getting super embodied consent with our own being, like, yes, this is the thing. This is my next right step, or this is where I need to take accountability, or these are the people I need to connect with and listen to and learn from. And these are the ways that we can move forward. And this is how I can plan for, the mistakes I may make and how I can move forward through repair. So that for me has been one of the biggest expectations to adjust, is slow it down. And it doesn't have to happen all right away.
It's a great reminder. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you have entrepreneurial brains in this group, but if you do, I've learned over time, it's kind of like pew, 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 like ideas all the time, 3 in the morning in the shower. And it can feel really overwhelming when you start engaging with that. And so finding a way to kind of harness it so that you don't go all over the place. Like I kind of write mine down, and then maybe like Robin said, I might come back to it, or I might not come back to it, in some form. So kind of figuring out what that looks like. And I think the slowing down piece is really important, because that's where I recenter and get back in touch with what I'm anchoring myself into. And so figuring out a way to do that regularly, or just when you feel overwhelmed, like I can't do this and it's just not going to happen, it's not working, instead of kind of trashing it, really, taking Robin's advice and slowing down, re-anchoring yourself, and saying kind of, maybe I just need to get rid of this piece of the whatever it is that you're doing, and then recenter yourself over here. And I've done that a couple of times. I do that pretty regularly, actually, like, let's trash this isn't working, let's refocus over here. It's a constant process. So totally agree. So for tip number 3, we're going to do 4 total tips. For tip number 3, I wrote down tenacity and commitment. So really staying the course. So kind of like we're talking about, where you're kind of like, maybe I'll get rid of this aspect over here that's not working, or that I don't really feel passionate about, or I thought it would be a good idea, but it's really not accomplishing what I want. It's okay to let those things go. I've had a variety of programs in my process that I have let go of, and continue to do that. And I think that's a really normal part of the process that we have to embrace, rather than feeling like we're failures or it's not going to work. So really staying committed to the process, and also remembering, one of the ways I started thinking about this vision and business of building Scaling Up is I kind of saw it like I'm building a house from scratch, and I've never built a house before. So if you think about like, okay, I've got this piece of land, let's say that's kind of like your idea. And then you're like, okay, I need to figure out how to build the foundation. How do I do that? I guess I'll watch some YouTube videos, and maybe I'll hire some help, and maybe I'll bring in, whoever to help me. And then I don't know how to do plumbing. So I guess I'll figure that out now. I don't know how to do, and it feels like that's kind of the constant process, at least in my case, in business building and kind of bringing this vision to fruition. But I think if you can kind of stay the course and just know, like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to build this thing that I'm building. And I know it's not going to be built overnight. So really, celebrating those little wins and successes along the way is really important to help you stay committed. So for example, with Scaling Up, I actually started when I first came up with the vision of Scaling Up. I don't think I got paid from it for at least a year. So I was doing some building without any pay for a year, and I had my full-time private practice that I was using to live off of at the time. And then the first probably 2 years I was paid kind of part-time income. So I had like a part-time, full-time private practice, and then I was kind of building Scaling Up on the side, and I was kind of slowly hiring some part-time people to also take Robin's advice, which is hire people to help you who are passionate and good at the things that you are not passionate and good at. So I was able to, work with Robin and Meredith, who both have different skill sets and interests that I don't have. Like Robin has this amazing creative side and creates all this beautiful stuff for us that I'm so bad at. And she's really good at it. And Meredith does all this operation stuff, and she loves geeking out on all the behind the scenes and building websites. And I'm terrible at that, and I'm not good at it. And so surrounding yourself with people where you can feed off each other's energy, and that everybody on your team is doing the stuff that they're really excited and good about, or good with. Because if you don't, anytime I have to do something that I don't want to do, it takes me like 10 times longer to do it than the things that I'm really excited about doing. So kind of figuring out how to use your energy in a way where it builds momentum with the people around you, I think will help you kind of stay the course. And then just having these realistic expectations of it's not going to be built overnight. So I have to celebrate these little victories along the way. So it was probably about 3.5 years in before I was paying myself a full-time salary with Scaling Up. So just to kind of give some realistic expectations of, this wasn't built overnight. It was kind of a gradual thing that was built over time, and creating those realistic expectations for yourself, I think, will be really important. Do you have anything related to that to add, Robin?
I think just real quick, I would add, in order for like tenacity and commitment to remain, we also, it has to be sustainable. We need a lot of time to rest, and we need to be able to quit, like daily. I'm done,
Yeah.
and then decide to come back, and pivot again, like the adjusting expectations. So those things don't mean that you're not going to shift ever and that it's rigid. And it has to be sustainable in many domains in order for us to remain kind of like have that grit, that it takes to get through the really hard times. And it isn't about just our tenacity and commitment, but also those around us who have explicitly agreed to support us as we're doing this. Because I don't know who all is here, but if you've done a big project in your life, whatever it is, a business, a community project, parenting, like big things in life, there are so many people that it takes to help you through that. And it requires a lot of them too. And so in order for us to do that well, sustainability and rest and all of those, we really need our community of people around us to support us, just as we support them. So it's kind of this interdependent relationship with one another, us supporting each other, and our people need to be able to rest too, and say, hey, I can't be there this week, I'm resting, so time to tap in one of your other support people this week, things like that. So yep, tenacity, commitment are amazing, and they require sustainability and rest, and being able to allow ourselves to quit and just not do it for a hot second if we need to. Yeah.
Exactly. I completely agree with that. I was lucky enough this year. I took a 2 month sabbatical where I was able to rest, and Meredith and Robin were really running the show during that time. And I was able to show up for a weekly meeting with them and check my emails and then turn everything else off. And so I completely agree. If yourself and your team and the people that support you can value that, and you can find ways to integrate that into your own life and the lives of the people that you work with, I think that is crucial. So then, since we've got 5 more minutes, I want to jump into the last thing, which I wrote down is network to collaborate with others. So being here on this webinar, for example, and connecting with Robin and myself, finding other like-minded people who share your vision, and also people that don't think the way that you do, so that they can kind of challenge your perspective and stuff as well. I think having a good balance of that is important. But people that share your vision, that's how I initially got connected with Nacho. I went to his training, Dr. Herrero, and I introduced myself. I followed up. I've gotten really good at following up with people. Like if I say I'm going to email them, I will. The reason Robin and I got connected is because I don't remember how initially, but when we were both living in Denver, we went out for coffee and I liked her and I remembered her. And then I remembered that she had this virtual assistance program, and then I needed help. And so I reached out and found her on Facebook, and now we've been working together for a long time, years. So you just don't know what that one coffee or that one email or that one Zoom call is going to lead to. So reach out, follow up, find your people, build that, and then it will grow and take on a life of its own over time. And this team of people is going to be key to helping your vision grow. And so on that note, I wanted to offer a few opportunities, networking opportunities, if they appeal to you all, that we offer at Scaling Up. So we have a community of people through our trainings. So when we train people, we do a lot of follow-up. We offer a lot of other opportunities to stay in touch with us through webinars like this, through our Hive program, where we offer CEs and ongoing teaching for people. We also offer the opportunity for you all to be teachers in the Hive. So they're not just, sometimes we think about speakers as being kind of like these famous people that are kind of untouchable and you can't reach them and they write books and all this stuff. And those are also teachers. But I think that every one of you has something to offer as well in this room. And so we offer Hive teaching opportunities to everyone in our community. And so we'll send some follow-up emails after this with all of this information in there so that you can apply to be a Hive speaker if you want. You can join the Hive if you want. You can also join our summit that's coming up in June. That's going to be an amazing networking opportunity. It's called the Be Bold Summit, and it's all about enhancing opportunity for networking and learning for people that have bold ideas, bold visions, and have, even if you're scared, have this audacity to even have a vision that you want to scale up and make a bigger impact with. That could be business related. It could be, activism. It could be community related. It could be, working with clients. There's a lot of different areas. So we'll put that information in there as well. And we're actually offering a special discount for those of you who have joined us on this webinar and have signed up for the webinar to get an $80 off discount. It's a 20% off discount for the summit if you decide to sign up in the next 3 days. So we're going to put this in the chat and we're going to put it in follow-up emails. You can join us. It's in person in Denver, Colorado on June 10th and 11th. You can find more information at the BeBoldSummit.com. You can also join us live online, live streaming. So if you don't want to come in person because of COVID stuff, I totally get that. Or even if you decide the last minute, I signed up for in person, but now I want to switch to online. We just want to make it as accessible and as easy to access as possible. So we'll put that information in the chat too, because oh, nice. Robin put it in there. We'll put it in the follow-up email as well. But we would love to meet you all online, in person, spend 2 days with you online or in Denver talking more about this stuff and networking and helping each other to scale up our impact. So we appreciate you being here. Robin, do you want to add anything else about the summit before we go?
I just want to say one last thing. I hope that you've gotten that we think that the summit and scaling up your impact is for you, right? Like it isn't for a specific type of clinician. It's not just for those who are entrepreneurial or have a private practice or any like those types of things. If that is you, wonderful, but it is for you. So your bold idea can feel like a small thing to you, right? But it's a big deal. And relating with other people who have bold ideas. Maybe your bold idea is that you want to work towards a 4-day work week, right? So you can take Mondays or Fridays or whatever your favorite day of the week off is. But how do you do that, right? And so gather with other people that have ideas and that can be inspirational. One cool thing about the summit is we haven't said this online yet. And Kelly, I didn't ask if we can talk about this, but I'm going to hope that it's okay to talk about it. So our very last session of the summit, we're going to all come together and have a really cool, what did we name it? Reflection and integration workshop. And we're going to invite all of the speakers, we're going to invite all of the attendees, and we're going to hang out and reflect on what we've been learning over the last couple of days, learning not just in the sessions, but learning from each other in between sessions, learning about ourselves as we kind of navigate that space, and come together and hang out and talk through things and workshop some things. So if you want that, if you love the idea of coming to a summit, a conference, kind of engaging in the stereotypical things, there's a speaker, there's sponsors, like those kinds of things, filling up your swag bag. That's the best part of conferences for me. I love the swag bag. So hopefully ours is going to be amazing. I think it's going to be, but then coming together and having a time where we get to figure out what's the next step, or who do I need to talk to? Is there someone here that wants to brainstorm with me, that wants to, meet up after this? Or maybe we can hang out on Zoom next week, because you might meet someone that lives 2,000 miles away. So I'm really excited about that one, because we'll be able to come together and learn one another's perspectives after we've all engaged with this, the material of the week. Because the summit is set up the way it is, you're not going to be able to go to every single session. So if there was one that you wanted to go to but couldn't because you chose a different one, the very last gathering is a great opportunity to connect with someone that went to the talk you couldn't go to, and kind of get the Cliff's Notes version. So that you can kind of get a little bit of that information too. So I think that's it. I'm really glad that we got to hang out today, and I hope to see you folks either in the Hive or at the summit or at our next webinar, or just in our email. If you want to say hi, send us an email.
We want to know each and every one of you. And so we're really glad that you're here. We hope to see you connecting in other programs, conferences, webinars, and hope that y'all have a great day. So check out our emails, replay if you need to, and make yourself known to us, and hope you have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for coming. Bye, everybody.